see now, you done fucked up, you know that, don't you?
What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. I know y'all was waiting for this video, right? IShowSpeed goes to Egypt, and I'm gonna get to Libya, but I think each video deserves its own separate video. IShowSpeed went to Egypt, and everybody in Africa, all the real Africans, actual, foundational black Africans, they told IShowSpeed, when you go to Egypt, you go to North Africa, you're gonna see the difference. You ain't gonna have no love because they don't believe that they're African, unless it's convenient to them. Now, before I go, I do understand that there's a new generation of North Africans, right? Young ones who don't view themselves as racist as their parents, but they're just as ignorant because they still want to hold on to the falsity that they have anything to do with my people, foundational black Africans, and those, and what we accomplished in Africa. As architectural history will show you that architecturally, Africans have been building megalithic structures with rock and pouring concrete for tens of thousands of years. Linguistically, you would see that we've been speaking similar languages, changing over time with different dialects. You will see genetically that we are still, in fact, those very same ancient black Africans, foundational black Africans who populated and enriched North Africa until those Arab, Turkish, and European invaders who recently showed up. And the funny thing about it is, the history is documented. We all know that you Arabs, you Turkmen, you Europeans, because don't forget, there was a European migration into North Africa when France and all those European countries colonized North Africa. You see, the Arabs colonized North Africa, that desert, when the black foundational Africans, FBA, because I'm stealing that shit, foundational black Africans, when we realized we were losing to these Arabs, we just simply went back to the motherland. We went back to where we knew, where the ancient Egyptians said they were from. Home, the land of their fathers. They literally wrote it down, right? And created all kinds of civilizations that preceded it. The great kingdom of Ghana, the great Ifa, all the West African cultures that have been shunned, hidden from the diaspora, right? And because of the great effort of Arabs, right, fake Arabs and Europeans stealing African culture, because of it, the centuries of coordinated effort of the people who built nothing, the people who built nothing stealing from those who built everything, which is cultural consistency, by the way, because that continues on to today, as the people who build nothing still continues to steal from those who build everything. And I'm going to use this opportunity because y'all done fucked up, all right? Embarrassing yourselves, still trying to pretend as if you guys are the Egyptians. You guys can't even go outside without your desert spacesuits. You can't stand in that African sun without covering up your bodies because you biologically do not belong there. And your history is so new. There's video evidence of you guys moving in. Video evidence of you guys moving in. That's how bad it is, all right? But if you guys continue to want to lie and pretend and trick yourselves in believing that you accomplished something that you didn't, go right ahead. All you're doing is making yourselves look like clowns, because in the age of information, it's all but known. It's all but known. It's a fact, not an opinion. The Egyptians, who were Kemites, were all black. And you Arabs, you Greeks, you Turkmen had nothing to do with the greatness of Egypt. That's in Africa, by the way. You guys should probably try to concentrate and find the history of your own people. You Turkmen, go celebrate your building yachts and shit. Go celebrate your horse culture. You Arabs, go celebrate your camel culture. Go celebrate how good you guys can survive in the desert. Go celebrate that. Because there is nothing in your recent Arab history, because you Arabs are nothing but a consequence of trade between Africans, Asians, and Europeans. You guys are the babies. You guys are the first mixed mulattoes. And because you have no history that apparently you can be proud of, your only inclination is to steal from other people. Now, we're used to it. White people have done it, and you Arabs want to be white, so you're doing it. You're part white anyway. Maybe that's your side or anything like that. But at this point, you guys should be embarrassed. They literally put it on the wall. You look nothing like Egyptians. Your hair doesn't do anything black people hair does. You see, we celebrate our hair. It's part of our cultural and our colors and our patterns. It's consistent throughout Africa. Our infrastructure, our language, the way we swag, our literal bodies, the way our bodies are framed is plastered on those walls, been there for 10,000 years. And you Arabs do not have the same body as us. You don't have the same long limbs, long arms. You don't have any of that. Nothing. Nothing about you says Egyptian. Everything about you says scavenger, an invader. And I promise you, one day, the true Egyptians, the true people of that land will come back. That's why it so viscerally affects you when you see somebody like ISO Speed, who represents real Egyptians more than you guys do. Now, I understand there's some of you guys there that are just far removed mixed mulattoes. Which I see y'all, but you see, you only want to be black when it's cool. You think being African is starting to become cool. And I know one day you guys are going to come around that corner and all of a sudden want to be African and kumbaya with the rest of Africa. But keep in mind, we're going to remember all of this. And you're going to have to prostrate. But just know, one day, just like before, black Africans, foundational black Africans, will one day repopulate North Africa and take back what belongs to us. And you guys can feel free to move back into that desert where you belong, because that's where you belong. And you will always be nothing more than those people from the desert who came to invade under your Islam, under your Abrahamic religion that was given to you by the Catholic Church. Yeah, that's right. But anyway, I'm going to take this opportunity to educate, because you done fucked up. You done highlighted your ignorance to ISO Speed's fan base. 40 million people are now have their eyes on you, talking about integrity. Come on, man. You saying that this round nose that's perfectly symmetrical is not a strong, integral part of a statue? You want us to actually believe that? I do not think so. Anyway, without further ado, this Afro Think Tank, learn something, teach something. I'm out.
Wait, I have a question. Why is his nose gone?
We have two reasons. The first one, because the erosion factors. This is the weakness point of the statue. Because the erosion factors, it's broken. And maybe the second reason, because any king after this king tried to broke his nose to be the strongest one.
Oh. So just the ego thing, huh?
Yes.
Wow. The Sphinx. Let's get a shot. Wait, what happened to her nose? What happened to her nose? Why is her nose cut off? Did it fall off, Chad?
Everyone ask me when you just come in here why Sphinx is without nose. It's famous from Egypt and some countries. Who broke a nose? The historian man Makrizi from Islamic era. Write inside his book and say, a man his name Sa'im al-Dahr do this. But why? Why Sa'im al-Dahr do this? Because he won't be proof. For some people, it is just a statue, just stone, not God. For this, he just broke a nose and say he can protect himself. What he do? He just a stone.
Oh, so he was trying to prove that the statue was not a god.
Not a God.
So he broke the nose.
Sphinx is a one piece, but two parts. For this lion head is human, but not normal human. It's royal human. And we think this is the face of King Khafre.
Speed has been consistently streaming in countries all over the world, and for a while everything was going perfectly fine until he went to Egypt. For whatever reason, as soon as he got to Egypt, he ran into problems that is slowing or completely stalling his streams altogether. Check it out.
With filming here, like you have to like basically get a permit for pretty much everything, if that makes sense. It's a lot of restrictions here. I don't think y'all realize that.
And it doesn't stop there. Not even a day after he posted his stream in Egypt, it was taken down completely off the internet, which has led many people to believe that the Egyptian government is trying to hide or just doesn't want the general public to see whatever's going on there. I mean, Egypt is very well known for having a ton of history as well as mysteries, but the question is, are they actually trying to hide something? And if so, what do you think it is?
Breaking news, iShowSpeed stream in Egypt video was removed from YouTube. So this is what happened from beginning. iShowSpeed said streaming in Egypt is very hard and it was the most expensive stream he had in Africa. He also said that there is a lot of rules and restrictions in Egypt. In order for him to stream in Egypt, he has to get a permit. The reason why they removed the Egypt stream video from YouTube is because toward the end, he rented a boat, and in this boat there was some music which was playing in the background. He asked these people, is there going to be any copyright issue? You need to turn off the music, but they assured iShowSpeed that there is not going to be any copyright issues. One of the artists of this music was trying to get clever and he filed for copyright issues. He was trying to get ad revenues. What he had no idea is that YouTube creators, they are allowed to replace the copyright sanction with YouTube music, and this is what iShowSpeed did. He replaced the sanction which had this music, he replaced it with YouTube, one of YouTube music which is copyright free, and then iShowSpeed returned the video back online in YouTube.
So at this point, are we not tired of the lies? So iShowSpeed went to Egypt and he was being shown all of the statues and things like that. And Darren Watkins asked this lady, why is his nose broken off? And why is a lot of the statues' noses are gone? And she came up with this crazy explanation as to why they have no noses. But we all know why their noses are broken off. Because a certain people group went over there and they did not want people to know the true history of our world and who the people were during that time. And so they hit off the noses because noses give a complete distinction of a person's ethnicity and where they come from. So the easiest thing to do is to knock off their nose. That's why when you go to all of these historic places, you see a lot of statues with no noses. They do not want you to know in simple terms that they were Black people, that they had these types of noses. They don't want you to know that. She comes up with this grand explanation as to why they did it.
But the CT scan has one more surprise for Alejandro: Shamai's ethnicity.
Well, they have just told me that Shamai had a Nubian feature, which means that their ruling family was probably Nubian, and that was unexpected.
Examining Shamai's anatomy closely, the thickness of his bone and the shape of his nasal cavity, the anthropologists think he was a black African, likely from neighboring Nubia. A huge revelation that challenges the prevailing image of the Egyptian ruling class.
We always thought the ancient Egyptian elite were Mediterranean type, and in this sense, Shamai is representing the society of the frontier, in which different ethnic groups were mixed. At the end, it doesn't matter the color of your skin. Shamai was Egyptian.
The archaeologist in the video is Alejandro Jimenez Serrano. He and his team found a tomb on the western bank of the Nile, opposite Aswan. And as you might have heard, the mummy was called Shemaiah. So who was Shemaiah? Not much is known about him, but the little that we know is that he was an ancient Egyptian official who...
There's a few passages, but they're really, it's like, so he's talking, if he does talk about skin color, this one we'll talk about it later. I'll pull it up later, but it's important to know when he does talk about skin color, he does say that Ethiopians and Egyptians are both black. So that one's probably going to, freak people out, but that's just what Aristotle says.
The Arabs didn't come to Egypt until 640. The first non-African people came to Egypt, otherwise called the Hyksos, in 1675 BC. The Africans there were already in the 13th dynasty period. They had built every pyramid you saw there before. They had done the S-turn in the Nile. They built every one of the major temples that had already been built, including the Grand Lodge of Luxor. The first European to come there did not arrive until the Greeks arrived with Alexander II, the son of Philip of Macedonia.
Look, I'm a college graduate. I never heard all this stuff before.
Because they didn't intend to teach you that. They can't tell you that you're inferior and teach you that you taught Europe. The first Europeans to be civilized by the Africans were the Greeks. When you heard of Homer, the first European to have written anything, you couldn't miss that. They said that Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. And that was not until 833 BC. The Africans had already, in 255,000 at the Tassili Mountain, they had the Sibyllian period, first, second, and third, the pre-dynastic period, all the way up. The Africans had produced men like this, Imhotep, the multi-genius that designed the step pyramid of Saqqara, the first man to be a physician that even Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine, is giving him credit and calling him the god of medicine. The Greeks changed his name from Imhotep to Aesculapius. There he is. There he is.
Wait a minute. This gets into what you were saying. So wait a minute. You guys are telling me now that black men taught Homer and...
As a matter of fact,
went to Egypt to school.
As a matter of fact, the Egyptians said Homer was Egyptian, not Greek.
That's right. It's only the Europeans said that. The Westerners now said that he was. But let us go back. Remember that Homer himself said in the Odyssey what? That the gods Zeus and Apollo, Europe's first gods, came from Ethiopia. Go read it. And I didn't write it. He wrote it. Thales, from Thales down to Socrates, and Socrates down to Aristotle, which they call the pre-Socratian philosophers and the post-Socratian philosophers. Each and every one, including Plato, who spent 15 years in Egypt receiving their education.
You're saying Plato was educated in Egypt?
15 years.
See,
before that, you heard nothing of him. Every one of them.
What you'd have me believe then also, for part of what you said last night, is that Plato and these guys went back home, and they were big guys. But they were taught in Egypt? Is that what you said?
They came there for their
education.
And they said it. They didn't hide it. It's the modern writers, the modern instructors and professors who trendy to know it.
Right, you can't have in a racist school in Birmingham non-racist education.
More. And let's do the next one. Now, can you look at these and come to any other conclusion about the ethnicity of these folk that are on this screen? But the children laugh because they're not used to seeing that. Next. This is an image of a warrior king. Reminds me of Baba Heru. This is Tutmos III. He is this is a nephew of Hatshepsut. He was on the throne for 54 years. Tradition says he conquered 17 nations. He led 17 military campaigns in person and conquered 105 nations.
Everyone talks about ancient Egypt. But what if the first powerful African kingdom came from south of the pyramids? Before Egypt even had its first pharaoh, the kingdom of Tasseti was already thriving in Nubia, along the Nile in what is now southern Egypt and northern Sudan, dating as far back as 3500 BCE. Tasseti had its own rulers, trade routes, pottery styles, and elite burial. The Egyptians later refer to it as the land of the bow, because of the Nubians' skill as archers. Some archaeologists believe that Tasseti may have influenced early Egyptian culture, sharing ideas in religion, kingship, and art. In fact, Nubian tombs from this period show complex rituals and social hierarchy, suggesting that African statehood was flourishing before Egypt was even unified. Like and follow, and remember, stay curious.
So moving on to the Yoruba lineage starts with Muenya, and Muenya was the grandson of the Wangara general Modi Soap. Oranmiyan would be the grandson of Muenya, and he would be the founder of the Oyo and Edo lineages. When it comes to orature, the Awujale of Ujebuland cites Sudan, or ancient Kush, as the origin point of their lineage. Dr. Salahu applies this orator evidence to a pluridisciplinary approach that combines historical linguistics, archaeology, and cultural anthropology in uncovering a Lutanzigi migratory origin of the Yoruba people that journeyed along the tributaries of the Nile into West Africa. And according to Dr. Joel Irish's dental morphological analysis, both the Yoruba and the Igbo have a dental morphology that brings them closer to Eastern African populations as opposed to most Western Africans. So all of this would make the Yoruba part of the Sinagala migration and closely related to the Igala, Igbo, Nupe, and Beriberi or Zagawa people. Theological and philosophical correspondences between the Yoruba and the Happy River Valley populations further validate this migratory link. You have Nun and Nunet with Nini and Aini, Kek and Keket with Okunkun and Ketekete. And again, Dr. Salahu, compiled these different correspondences just to relate the development of the Yoruba civilization as an extension of the Pharaonic civilization within the post-dynastic period.
This is the four people of the world as known by the ancient Egyptians. You have the Libyan, Nubian, someone from the Levant, an Egyptian. This Egyptian person moved from the Horn of Africa. They moved from the Horn of Africa. It's very, very important to know this. What is termed Afroasiatic languages or language family is actually what you will call Horn of African languages. They moved from that region about 15,000 years ago. This is what you may call the Southern Afrasian, Cushitic if you want to, Horn of African people. And this is the Northern, sometimes it's called Erythrates, same group of people. They moved along this corridor into this region and populated this region. Now the Nubians are Nilo-Saharans. Nubian is a Nilo-Saharan language. Now this image is important because this is how the ancient Egyptians saw the Nubians. This is not what I want to show you, but I saw this in the camera roll and I thought I might just stress on it. Here's an ancient Egyptian worshipping the god Osiris, which represents the awakened self. You see, he's black. He's in fact called Lord of the Perfect Black or the Perfect Black God. Modern day Egyptians will lose their mind if they were told to worship a god of this color that looks like these ladies right here. Look at their melanin on these sisters right here. So this is how the ancient Egyptians saw Nubians. But there has to be a caveat to this because this was how they saw most of the Sudan. But it doesn't mean that most Sudanese look like this. But generally, they saw Nubians as these. Because most Sudanese actually have this complexion. Those in the northern parts of Sudan, a lot of them will have this sort of complexion. So this tells you that there's been a lot of bad things going on in that, Egypt today that we know it. They've been driving us down. As I was saying to you, this is another depiction of Nubians according to the Egyptians. You have this complexion, which is similar to my complexion, which will also be similar to Somalis and Ethiopians and some northern Sudanese people. But you then have you can see the Nur, hope I've said it right there, Dinka and so forth would look like this. But it's important to see that the Egyptians saw these two as the people who occupied most of the Sudan. Does that make sense? And here's an interesting thing. Most Africans don't have that very dark color. It's something that is seldom seen in Africa. It's only amongst certain groups, maybe some of the Nilotes, maybe some people in West Africa, particularly the Senegalese. And there you have the Nubians, as you can see. You can see that despite the brown skin color, you can also see that they look like physiologically, in terms of their facial proportions, they look alike, but just that one is this color, another is that color. These are supposed to be Nubians, you see? What's happened is that because of the invasions and the conquering, people have moved down. He's going to finish off with this image. This person is an Egyptian. This person has the complexion of people from the Horn. But if you really observe it, she also has tropical body plans, elongated sort of neck, slim sort of limbs, etc.
You are Nubian to us, you are Nubia. So to the Nubians, we are Egyptians because we are the new Egyptians.
The new Egyptians.
The Nubians are the native Egyptians.
The ancient,
they were
right?
the ones who built ancient Egypt.
Wow.
Who built the pyramids, who built ancient Egypt civilization, who invented Egypt, as I would say, were the Nubians.
Hello. If you're following me, you know now that there's a topic that is going very, very viral right now on the true origins of the ancient Egyptians that have built civilization as we know it. So, for the past week, I've been on every Egyptian main social media platforms. People coming at me because now is the time that we expose the truth on who the real Egyptians are. As a result of this, the modern people living in Egypt have decided to finally accept the truth that they are not the native people of Egypt, and have decided to accept that Sudanese people are the real Egyptians, as you can see here in this video. So, thank you everybody for spreading the message. Let's keep it going.
Hello viewers and welcome back to Gorka TV. In this video, the Oni of Ile-Ife, Oba Enitan Ogunwusi or Georgia II, explains how Oduduwa's crown was taken to Egypt to the pharaohs.
And they now came up with a crown from Oduduwa, and they now took it to Kemet, and from Kemet they took it to Egypt, and that's how pharaohs in Egypt emerged. So it's called Ifarao. The crown that they took from Ife is Ifarao. Now the kings of Egypt, they're called pharaohs. Ifa Uriawo. And they now came up with a crown from Oduduwa, and they now took it to Kemet, and from Kemet they took it to Egypt, and that's how pharaohs in Egypt emerged. So it's called Ifarao. The crown that they took from Ife is Ifarao. Now the kings of Egypt, they're called pharaohs. So you're welcome
A large number of the slaves who came to the West were Yorubas from Nigeria. Most of the revolts were set in motion by Yorubas, led by Akans from Ghana. Toussaint Louverture was a Akan, but he didn't set the Haitian Revolution in motion. The person that set it in motion was a Yoruba, Boukman, a priest. The revolt in Guyana, led by Kofi, well led by Kofi. But the man that set it in motion was Ankara, a Yoruba. The Yorubas and the Akans developed a partnership away from Africa that they never had in Africa. The same thing is true of the revolts in Brazil. It is the Yoruba culture that held it together. And they couldn't get to them until they broke through that strong Yoruba culture. The main staying power of the revolt in the Western world was Yoruba. When we look at Nat Turner, Magvizi, Gabriel Prosser, we find the same kind of process.
Hi, it's Quainer here, and we're going to watch a video of a Black American man, or African American, finding out that he is a descendant of Pharaoh Ramesses III. And this lady here is interviewing him. Let's go.
We're now very happy to be joined by our next guest, Dexter Caffey, the founder of Smart Eye app, who recently learned of an eye-opening discovery of his own ancient past, all thanks to a DNA test. He is joining us now by Zoom from Atlanta. Hello, Dexter.
Hello, Emily. How are you?
It's so good to see you. Last time was here in Israel. We got to get you back here, but we'll have to settle for Zoom now. You have such an interesting history. Please explain what made you do a DNA test, and then what happened when you found out all of a sudden that you're related to Ramses III.
That's a great question, Emily. Well, about a year and a half ago, I traveled to places like Israel, France, and different places like that. So what happened was people would always ask a normal question, where are you from? And I would say the States, United States. And the people I saw in France would say, no, where are you really from? And I said, the States. That's all I know. And so that question stuck with me for a long time. And I just said, where am I actually from? I mean, I know I'm American, but where my DNA is from? I said, well, let me take my DNA test. It was a 23andMe DNA test, and I took the test, and I was shocked when I saw the results. It came back, and it showed that I was actually a direct descendant of the Pharaoh Ramses III, and I knew nothing of the pharaohs. Didn't know much about Egypt, but everything you hear about, Bible stories and things like that. So for me, it was a huge shock, and that's how I found out about it.
So this is a picture of Ramses III next to the man in question. Is there any resemblance? What do you think? Let's get back to the video.
Obviously, you took it deeper and deeper. You saw all of these synchronicities in, looking at images of the pharaoh, how much you and even your brother look like them. And your own company has like an eye logo that looks like the Eye of Horus, unconnected to any of this. So what did this open up for you in terms of your own knowledge and learning about this?
I remember I was actually laying in my bed on Christmas Day, 2021, and I was going through my 23andMe DNA test, and that's when I saw that I was connected to the Pharaoh Ramses III, and again, I knew nothing of this situation. And so I looked up a sculpture of the Pharaoh Ramses III, and when I saw the sculpture, I literally screamed. And my wife said, Dexter, what's wrong? I said, this guy from 4,000 years ago, we look just alike. And she said, Dexter, wait a minute. There were no pictures from 4,000 years ago. I said, no, his sculpture was the Pharaoh Ramses III. His sculpture, we look like identical twins. And she said, let me see it. She saw it. She said, oh, my goodness. And then I continued to go over different sculptures, looking online. And I saw the sculpture that looked just like my brother. If you could show that on the screen, it'd be absolutely amazing. But it was, and I looked at the sculpture and I said, this looks just like my brother Joe. And I called my brother Joe and said, I'm going to send you something. And he said, where'd you get that from? It looks just like me. I said, that's a sculpture of the Pharaoh Ramses III. And he said, oh my God. I said, that's over 4,000 years old. It looks identical, just like you. So we were blown away, completely blown away.
And talk about the synchronicities. It's funny how, the universe speaks to us. So you have a company that with the eye is a logo. You even have a dog that's similar to the dogs of Pharaoh. What?
As I kept digging more and more, I had a friend who's here in the States. He's from Israel, and he said, Dexter said, your logo that you have for your company, the eye, that you started like over 4 years ago, looks just like the logo from the Pharaoh Ramses III. I said, what are you talking about? What did they have? And they had the Eye of Horus. And I looked at it, I said, oh my goodness, they had an eye as their logo, and my company's logo was an eye. And again, keep in mind, Emily, I found this out about a year ago. But I had my company established for over 4 years before that, my startup. And so I just kept continuing. I said, this is crazy. We actually have the same image, logo. And so I kept digging further, and I found out that they had dogs called the Pharaoh Hound, which is in the same family as the dogs that I own called Whippets, which are sight hounds. So they run just as fast, chase small prey. That's what they were bred for. So, and then I continued to look at it further, and I said, wait a minute. What was the Pharaoh Ramses III's name? When I actually looked it up, it was, they had different names, of course, but the name was Seti, S-E-T-I, Seti number 2. That was the Pharaoh Ramses III name. Seti number 1 was his father, the one that was the fought against Moses and the let my people go situation. So Seti number 2 was Pharaoh Ramses III. And I said, wait a minute, my company's name is actually Smart Eye Technology Incorporated. If you take the first letters, Smart Eye Technology Incorporated, it comes out this SETI. That blew my mind. I said, this is insane. So I just, everything connected. And I'll never forget, Emily, my first trip to Israel in 2015, I went to the Negev Desert, and I felt so comfortable in a Negev Desert. I remember saying to myself, I feel like I could live here. But when I did more research, I found out that the Pharaoh Ramses III spent years in the Negev desert trading. So again, these are all things I'm learning, and I felt like so much at home, and I just realized why.
Wow, it's incredible. So obviously you're still on your learning journey of, what this all means, but what is it like to kind of be this person who happened to get a test, discover this, and now we're also learning a little bit about what pharaohs look like. We have images from the Ten Commandments, as you noticed, but what does this tell you, and what do you want to do with this information?
I think it's all still learning. I'm still learning. If you saw the image of how I look, just like the Pharaoh Ramses III, every day when I look up in the mirror, I look in the mirror and I just see myself, and I said, this is crazy that this image that I see is identical to me. And this was from 4,000 years ago. So I'm still shocked every day when I wake up and look at it.
Thank you so much, Dexter. Next time we'll interview
Thank
you
you,
right here
Dexter. Just one correction. It's actually over 3,000, not 4,000 years ago. Just being pernickety. But isn't this amazing? And if you think this is like DNA bull, like anyone can be related, let me show you when it happened to an English actor, and he found out he was related to the kings of England. Watch this. Right, so this is Danny Dyer on Who Do You Think You Are?
Explain to
and
me. So
he's
I don't know if that name Plantagenet.
he's about to find out
obviously not
that he is a direct
so I've no idea.
descendant of a king
if you
of
follow
England.
the line back up to the top, you'll see where that name takes us. Edward III. Edward III, that great medieval king. So Edward III, yes, he's your 22 times great grandfather. So you are directly descended from King Edward III of England. Can't be. Can't be. A direct descendant from Edward III.
It's funny, isn't it? He's Edward III, and the man we just watched is Ramesses III. It just doesn't stop, does it? Whenever I watch Who Do You Think You Are and there's a black person on it, I know that they're always going to end up in the West Indies, if they're from England, and a slave plantation, and that's as far as it goes. Never seems to go back any further than that. So it's refreshing to see one that's gone back thousands of years and found a direct link to an Egyptian pharaoh in his blood. Funny how this has never been widely publicised on news channels all over the world, isn't it? Or a programme, a TV show's never been made about it, like the one I just showed you about Danny Dyer being related to a king of England. Maybe there's too many people out there who just don't like DNA and what it's bringing up, because you can't argue with DNA. I had exactly the same experience with when I used to make videos about the Moors and talk about North Africa and Spain, and people used to tell me to shut up, it's got nothing to do with me, it's not my history. And when I did my DNA, guess where some of my DNA came from? North Africa and Spain. So now I could tell those people to shut their mouths. Black people, go out there and do your DNA. Find out where you're from. And I know some of you in America don't even want to be associated with Africa, and you're afraid of DNA, and you say it's a myth and it's a lie. It's because you're scared. You're scared that you'll find out that your ancestors are actually Africans. And there's nothing to be ashamed about being African. That's just the brainwashing that's been worked on your mind that makes you afraid of your own past.
Sudan, boycott diamonds and gold. Free Sudan, boycott diamonds and gold. We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan.
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.